Let me up with a bright smile.
Now let us read the poem slowly and understand the meaning. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. The poet was walking all alone in the countryside. He says, I wandered lonely as a cloud. Wandered means he was roaming aimlessly. He was lonely, which means sad about being alone. Now let us remember he was not actually alone, but he felt alone, probably because of the death of his brother John. He compares himself and his loneliness to a cloud that floats in the sky high above the hills and valleys. The cloud floats on high, which means it is positioned high in the sky at a distance from the hills and valleys. It sees them, but it is a detached observer. When all at once I saw a crowd, means all of a sudden, unexpectedly, he saw a crowd. Was it a crowd of people? No, it was a host of golden daffodils. They were everywhere. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, they looked beautiful, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. The daffodils were of a dazzling golden color. A host means a crowd, and also host signifies that the stretch of land was their home, and they were welcoming others, here the poet, into their home and entertaining him. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The poet compares the number of daffodils to the number of stars on the Milky Way. He says that the daffodils appeared as continuous and indistinguishable from one another as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. This comparison creates a sharp contrast between the poet's lonely state of mind in the first stanza and the daffodils that are many in number and thickly clustered and close to each other, just like the stars in the Milky Way. Also, note the difference between shine and twinkle. Shine means that the stars give out a bright light. Twinkle means that they give out a light that changes constantly from bright to faint. Thus, the stars in the Milky Way perform a symphony in their own way by shining and twinkling continuously. In the same way, the daffodils also appeared continuous. They stretched in never-ending line, which means that as far as the poet's eyes could see, they kept on appearing in a never-ending line along the margin of a bay, which means the boundary of the lake. The poet then says that in just one glance he could see 10,000 daffodils dancing enthusiastically and tossing their heads together in enjoyment. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. The waves beside them danced, but they, the daffodils, outdid the sparkling waves in glee. Along with the daffodils, even the waves that were just beside them were dancing. Since the sunshine fell on the water, the waves were sparkling. They were also sparkling with happiness. But the daffodils performed better than the waves with their happy dance. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. Poets are highly sensitive to beauty and emotion. This is why Wordsworth says that in such cheerful company, a poet could not stop himself from being happy. It was impossible to be lonely and sad any more. The poet stood there for a long time, gazing or just looking fixedly at the daffodils, absorbing the beauty and happiness. At that point, he did not even realize what riches he had actually got from the show put up by the daffodils. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils. The last stanza reveals the everlasting impact of the daffodils, which the poet had not fathomed when he was actually looking at them in the countryside. He says that it is very often that he finds himself lying on the couch, feeling lonely, bored, and anxious. It is at this time that the daffodils flash, which means appear suddenly and brightly in his inward eye, which means the mind's eye, or memory, or imagination. The poet calls this the bliss of solitude, which is very different from loneliness. When you are lonely, you crave for someone's company. But solitude is when you're by yourself and happy with your own company. The bliss of solitude means the pure, unadulterated, calm happiness that the poet experiences thinking of the daffodils all by himself, undisturbed by anything or anybody. When the poet sees the daffodils in his mind's eye, his heart is filled with pleasure, and remembering the dance of the daffodils, his heart also dances with them in joy.